if you understand the landlord world and the investment world, like if you can go ahead and buy that multifamily and live in it, like it's like the smartest thing you can possibly do.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show or watching, which of course you can do on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and all these other places we put the recording. So, in any case, welcome aboard. We got a great guest today, Jim Black from Massachusetts. He's sort of centrally located, but he serves the greater Massachusetts market, down the Connecticut, Rhode Island, up to New Hampshire, excuse me, Boston, and one of my favorite places, which is Worcester. And if you've never heard of it, you're going to hear about it today because it's getting a lot of good press lately, and you really want to take it seriously. So first off, let's introduce you, Jim. Welcome aboard, man. I'm so glad you're doing this, and I know we're lucky to have you.
No, thanks for inviting me on, and I'm very grateful that you can say the name of our city because most people don't, and that's how you earn you get to earn people's respect is you got to know the name, how to say their city. So that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, I appreciate that. It helps that I used to travel quite a bit as a trainer, and
Yep.
I was literally every state, 3 Canadian provinces. I mean, literally 600 cities and towns, and it was one of the best things I've ever done, man. It was awesome. But so let me ask you this, just to get started, to kind of paint a picture here. Most of us didn't start out doing this. We started out like me. I was in IT. I worked at NASA,
No.
did mergers and acquisitions and banking. Well, I guess I could tell people I was a sub chaser for the U.S. Navy. It was all tech work. I never saw a sub, but we
Yep.
knew where they were. So, but I get in through the investing angle, and but so if you wouldn't mind, take us back to what you were doing and
Yep.
what was that? What got you into this? If you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah. So I had a couple careers prior to real estate. Well, I was a facilities technician at a semiconductor company. So I was like a mechanic. I was fixing machines, doing preventive maintenance. And I actually had a friend just say, I was sitting in his car and he said, "Hey, you should get your real estate license." And I said, "Okay." That was that was the leap into real estate. I wasn't an investor prior. I actually jumped into real estate in 2004, jumped
Hmm.
out just before it started to crash, 2005 through 6, 7, 8.
Hmm.
And I actually went and worked at Fidelity Investments for a few years in their call center. So which actually prepared me, I think, to come back and be able to sit there with a lot of rejection and be on the phone a lot.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a pretty good path to take. I mean, you were doing some technical work, and I'm going to just put this out there. Everybody listening, particularly the agents, whatever it is you're doing now, whatever it is you did before real estate, chances are it helped develop you, prepare you for a career in real estate. Whatever skills and talents you develop almost always are applicable. And the reason is real estate, it's like you're a jack of all trades. You have to be a great negotiator. You have to be a personal type person. I mean, be good at the building, maintaining relationships. You have to understand the numbers. You have to understand a little bit about the house construction. There's a lot involved there, and not to mention lending and insurance and the law. You got to get title insurance. So there's a lot there. So your technical background, Jim, I'm sure has served you well. And then the fact that you did work for Fidelity, not, I mean, you're in a call center, not just those skills, but the fact that you're in a finance environment, I think just has like a subtle subliminal type of impact on you. Um, so, all right, so you got your license, and I'm assuming you worked for initially, most people work for a brokerage for a
Yep.
couple of years, but um, did you ever have the idea of building your own brokerage, or did you eventually build a team? Take us through when you first got started
Yep.
to what the next level was for you.
So I got started in '04, was in it for a year, went back in 2010 for another year. I started on a team at a brokerage. I was at Keller Williams for a total of about 10 years. And I actually left that team because I wanted to have a very simple life. I wanted to sell 12 houses a year, just be able to pay my bills and get by. Those are my big ambitious goals. I
Hmm.
think I sold 27 houses that first year as a solo agent. And I hated the idea of teams. Like I did
Hmm.
not want to build the real estate team. I just thought it was, somebody at the top makes the money, the guys at the bottom make nothing. And but I got really busy. I got really busy, and I, out of necessity, had to start hiring people.
Mhm,
And I think the second year I sold 40 homes, and that was when I made my first hire. And then
mhm,
we hired another agent, we hired another admin, and we just kept going. And we've had a real estate team now for about 12 years.
mhm.
We've been at a few different brokerages, trying to find the place that was fits and is more like home.
Yep. So you do have a team now. Is it any family members involved, or is it really just people you met and hired throughout the?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question, because a lot of times people are always trying to find people that they don't know. We're going to put ads everywhere. Most of
Mhm,
my people either are somebody we knew or somebody through somebody we knew. Some of
mhm.
it, some of the people were like friends of our agents. Maybe there are a lot of past clients coming through. I think we've only hired maybe a couple people that have worked out that were people we didn't know ahead of time.
Mhm.
But no family members. Yeah, my family doesn't want to work with me.
That's awesome. Well, now, as far as support roles, is your team more traditional? You've got like a listing specialist, which could be you. Then you maybe got a buyers, or are they more all autonomous? They do listings and sales.
So our model is a little different than both of those, I would say. So we have one virtual assistant. We have, three staff members currently. We've had many different models over the years. So the transaction listing management, I have a director of operations who kind of runs the whole show. And then we have 8 agents essentially. Three of those agents are in partner roles. So all of our lead agents actually go and help buyers and sellers. However, like for myself, I have somebody who gets paid a salary plus commission that works with me on all the deals that we do.
Okay.
So that's a model that I think is one of the only models to ensure you actually can have a life in real estate, is to be
Yeah.
able to have that model. If you are even within a team, if you're just out there, going and showing buyers homes and you don't have any support, you're never going to see your family. You're never going to do anything. So
Right.
I think we found a way to have people be able to make really good incomes, provide a high level of service while also still having a life, being able to go on vacation, being able to take a day off every week. Real estate agents don't usually get days off. I hear people
Yeah.
jokingly say, they don't ever go on vacation. I'm like, that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live. Be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to GaryRealEstateWithGaryWilson.com. Click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So, in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. Yeah, I know. It's my oldest student ever was a guy who was 84 years old when he took my training, and I've seen it before. People in their 60s, 70s, and I asked him. I said, "Is you know, tell me about yourself. Where do you live?" And he said, "So we went to lunch, and he was filling me in. It wasn't a positive thing. I thought maybe he had lost his wife and he just wanted to keep busy and be in the community. He said, Gary, I don't have any retirement. I have to work and I can't live on Social Security. I'm like, holy cow, man. So I made it my mission to have my agents have at least another stream of income, something related. Like I've helped people build title. I used to own a title company too, but build title companies, appraisal businesses, I mean, contracting businesses. In our business, it'd be easy to set up a maintenance and contracting firm because you know everybody. Eventually, you do, anyways.
Yep.
Just corporatize it and farm it out. And I know a lot of brokers that do that, but for that reason, because I'm not going to talk about Social Security. I don't to me, I'm not even planning on it. I don't even, it's not even part of my vision. My vision is to be independent. But that was a heartbreaker when that guy told me that, and I thought, or I felt, I, I thought I should give him his money back, but he's like, no, I need to learn how to do this, crazy. Um, but so, what I want to do is, let's talk about the area a little bit. So you're in Auburn, which is right, next door to Worcester. Um, but you've also served, you've gone up above Boston. I mean, that's quite a drive, but
Yeah.
where you are, you're actually good because you're way outside the busy area, so you can kind of commute north, south, east, west more easily. But tell us, what's your favorite market right now there as far as your production and ease of attracting people to move there,
Worcester. We had talked about it earlier today too. Like Worcester is
Mm,
a very hot market. Worcester was not the Worcester that I remember from years ago. We were
mhm.
actually doing a team building event in where it was like scavenger hunt in the city yesterday, and it was just crazy. You're looking around and like all the different places that are open that were not there before. I remember going, down the center, down Main Street, and it was just like, really crappy businesses, nothing special, and it's like it's become a place where people actually want to go. There's more jobs. It's hard to find apartments. We talked about earlier, the real estate market has gone up drastically. Basically three times what it was just 7, 8 years ago for some of these
Yeah,
properties.
wow. Well, so what are the key industries there? When I was there the last time, I think they were building a hospital, if I'm not mistaken, or they had got approval or zoning for that. But higher education, high tech, what would you say are the three key industries here,
So Worcester there's a couple of things. So Worcester is really great from a commuter standpoint to Boston because you've got the T station going,
Mhm.
taking the train into Boston. That's one thing with Worcester, but they have incredible hospitals. That is another industry, and the higher education. They've built some colleges. Some of them have closed down, but it's compared to being, say, in Boston or even the suburbs, it is still more affordable, even though it's not as affordable as it used to be. So a
Right.
lot of people live here because it's also really easy to get on the highway and go to Boston. It's really not that bad to go to Providence or Hartford or any of the other cities. It's a reasonably good central location for people that work in. Maybe you have a spouse that works in one city and you work in
Yeah.
another. It's a spot where it's right. It's pretty much right where just north of where Mass, Connecticut, and Rhode Island meet.
Yeah. Well, it's what I like about it too is it's not too far from the Berkshires and it's not too far from the beach. I mean, you
Yep.
could easily, I mean, it'd be a little bit of a drive, but you could do a day trip to both of those. And I mean, who wouldn't love that? Have the mountains and the beach both easily accessible.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's very, it's like I said, it's been very desirable, and I would not have, if you asked me that question 10 years ago, I was not going to use that word to
Yeah.
describe Worcester, but it's actually,
Yeah.
where you actually enjoy going there to go out to eat, to go, go to, like the old
Yeah.
movie theater when I was a kid, like had been shut down for years, and then now the
Right.
Hanover Theater is there, and there's really some awesome. You don't have to go to Boston to go and see
Right.
a really good show.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, my first time there actually was 10 years ago. It was 2015. And my friend Justin's there. And I remember asking him, I was like, "Are you sure you want to invest here?" He said, "Oh yeah, it's really cheap." And I was, I'm like, "Yeah, I can tell." Yeah. But
Yeah,
but here it is 10 years later, man. I'm sure he just, oh my gosh, and anybody that owned property, prior to say 2021,
yep,
probably in really good shape. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's amazing. Yeah, because I bought a 3 unit building in 2018, and I would say, yeah, the value has almost tripled since then for that
yeah,
property.
I believe it. Yeah, it's just amazing. So let's talk about that a little bit. We can talk about some other areas too. But my introduction to Worcester was there to teach a class, and I was teaching
Yep,
the real estate how to work with real estate investors.
yep,
So I always looked at it through that lens, and I realized later, boy, more people are moving out here. Their gentrification is going
yep.
crazy, and they're taking all these old houses and making them beautiful. Um, but from an investor perspective, is it still a pretty good investing market as far as if you wanted to buy like you said, a triplex, um, I mean, I'm sure it's not as cheap as it was 10 years ago, but you still attract people they call you up saying, "Hey, can you help me find a good rental to rent?"
So my honest opinion, I mean, I'm definitely seeing it still making a lot of sense for somebody who's coming in to live in the building, go buy a 3 or 4 unit. Um, I'm struggling to see it cash flowing a lot of times. If somebody
Yeah,
buys a 3 unit and they're getting financing, I'm just not seeing it. So I have investments in Worcester, but I also have some investments in some of the towns outside of Worcester. There's like Southbridge,
yeah,
Spencer. It's spots between Worcester and Springfield that are maybe not as hot of a market. It's more of an overflow market for places like Worcester where it's a little bit cheaper to live,
yeah,
where you can still make the numbers work a little bit better. But I still see plenty of people coming in and buying these buildings for
yeah.
900,000 for a 3 unit building. Again,
Whoa.
when I thought it
Yeah,
was insane that I was going to pay 320 for one back 7 years ago.
yeah. Well, you know what? That dynamic it's true almost everywhere in the U.S. right now, where the values have gone up so much, the rents haven't kept pace with the increase in the
Right.
values, so the it just doesn't pencil out a lot. But what we've been teaching people to do is not necessarily Airbnb. There's been a lot of pushback on short-term rentals, and people were turning everything into Airbnb. But
Yep.
what does work, and is still working, and nobody's really like dominated the market, is the midterm rentals, the
Yep.
traveling nurse, somebody who comes in and teach a class for 3 months at the university, things like that. I mean, we're having a lot of success because they'll still pay twice the prevailing rate, even though it's for 3 or 6 or 9 months. That's still better than having people come in for the weekend party and then leave. Then it's just it's a different dynamic. The laws are easier when you have midterm rentals, and as long as you have a couple of key industries, um,
Yeah.
you can probably do well. Um, but you mentioned Springfield. I've been there also teaching, and when I was there, I was shocked at how affordable everything was. Now, granted, it was a while ago,
Yep.
but how's that market doing in the last 10 years? Would you say?
So that one has definitely increased drastically as well. I would say it's a little bit easier to make the numbers jive there. Or you could go
Mm-hmm.
north of Worcester to Fitchburg, but they're similar to Worcester. They're less,
Yeah,
but the rents are slightly less. So it's definitely, I'd say it's harder to find something that makes a lot of sense, or at least to me. Maybe I'm just
yeah,
so used to the old ways and the old numbers.
yeah,
I have a spreadsheet that outlines all the costs, and at the bottom, after all my reserves and the vacancies, if the number is less than zero, I don't see how I can buy it.
yeah.
But
The
but
people,
but some
yeah,
people that's not, they're looking specific, and that's some of it too, is they're looking for capital appreciation and they're not worried about the cash flow. It's not the way I invest or how I suggest
right.
people invest, but that is a strategy.
It it really what you'll find is a lot of investors. I'm like you. I started off strictly cash flow. I could not that I didn't care about appreciation, but it was a nice to have.
Yeah,
The focus was cash flow.
yeah.
But as people age, like here's what I started doing. I started evolving into more capital appreciation plays for a different reason. Like in the beginning, I'd put down my 20%, finance the other 80, and improve the property, get more cash flow, pay down any secondary debt I had. But after a while, I switched to 15-year mortgages,
Hmm.
and I had a tighter cash flow on those properties, but I
Yeah.
was paying them off a lot faster.
Mhm.
And I became my own bank. So what happens is then you start looking for the properties that'll go up in value more. Like you can look at the county zoning plans and development plans, and it's a little bit of a you're kind of betting on the future is
Yeah.
really what you're doing. But the appreciation takes you up so much higher. So then you can do things like lend money to other investors. That's really the reason why it's not that cash flow is not important. It's just people's lifestyle changes as they age, and also you want simplicity. And let's face it, if you look at the world of business anywhere on planet Earth, the people at the top of the food chain are the bankers, the people that can
Yeah.
control the money, man. That's nobody touches them, you know.
Yeah,
So
and I think that is a really important play and point though, because I did something similar when it came to how I was financing everything. is I did
Mhm.
it somewhere between 15 and 20 years on every property we bought. So with that being said, I've built a lot of wealth because if you've never gone and looked at the difference between the equity pay down on a 30-year mortgage versus a
Mhm.
15, you got to
Yeah.
look at it because I did. I mean, I did it on my personal residence. I've done it on multiple
Yeah.
investment properties, and it's just insane. And that's
Yeah.
I haven't had ridiculous cash flow over the years, but my more I'll hit a point, in the next like 12 years or so that I all my stuff will be
Yeah.
paid off, and that is a play I could take. I could live off of everything just from what's paid off. I don't know that that's my long term play, but it's not a
Yeah.
bad idea.
Absolutely. And by the way, the mortgage payoff, unless things have changed or the math is different, I did that years ago. I wanted to figure it out. On a average 30-year mortgage, the midpoint is around year 22. So literally, you got to pay on it more than 20 years to get the principal halfway done. Whereas on a 15-year mortgage, it literally is the halfway points between years 7 and 8. So I mean, you're just building equity, which is your net worth, faster. It's just scary when you're a new investor, though, because obviously you want as few expenses as possible with maximum cash flow. But um, in any case, I want to touch on the coast a little bit. I've been on the Cape many times. I'm not really a huge fan of Martha's Vineyard. I thought that little town was kind of weird, but Nantucket I thought was awesome. But really, one of my favorite beaches was you got the North Bridge and the South Bridge. So up above the North Bridge, right below where Plymouth Rock is, and I can't remember the name of the little beach town there. It wasn't even a town; it was just like a village. And exactly due east view, watching the sunrise over the water, beautiful. I just can't remember the Cape May or something like that, or
Maybe
um,
I'm not really
yeah.
sure.
But people were already Airbnb in those places, and just spectacular. The prices were great. You're again, you're not that far from Rhode Island, and there was a great winery right over the state line we used to go to. But as far as looking ahead, and it's not a trick question, it's just a kind of a hard one to answer for people because who knows what's going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball, but what kind of things are you seeing at the state level? Like anything coming down the road, legislation wise, any grants that they're offering people, like new home buyers.
Yeah,
Sometimes we see, yeah,
well, I mean, there are like if in Massachusetts specifically, if you fit in the box, like as a first time buyer, there are some grants where you're getting 25,000, I think it is, through a mass
nice,
housing program. I mean, it is just like all those things are usually very small boxes, but if you fit in the box, there's some free money. There's also somewhere there's like super low to almost zero interest
hmm,
options. They basically come out multiple times throughout the year. The money will be out, then it goes away, comes out, but that is something they've done to, kind of help with the first time buyer stuff because it is, I mean, I would say
hmm,
it's hard now where, I mean, somebody comes to you in our market here, 400,000 is a reasonable spot to start to buy your
yeah,
first house.
yeah,
That I was like multiple houses in before that was the price I was looking at.
oh
Um,
yeah,
and it's a little different than
yeah,
with that, and I think it helps people to be able to at least have some money in the bank while because they're gonna have to if they get 3-5%, you're coming up with 20 grand, and if they can put that in the bank and save that, and then maybe buy an investment property down the road. That's why I'm always an advocate of if you understand the landlord world and the investment world, like if you can go ahead and buy that multifamily and live in
hmm,
it, like it's like the smartest thing you can possibly do,
yeah,
as long as you're willing to treat it like a business.
yeah. It's funny you said that. My very first purchase was January 1986. It was a four-bedroom, two-bathroom ranch in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And get this, 63,000 bucks.
Yep.
And wasn't beautiful, but it was move-in condition and great yard. We were, 5 minutes from the ocean, and of course we were dumb kids. We just got out of college, so the I'll just tell you briefly. My college roommate, his name's Socrates. His dad helped us buy that first property. He never gave us money.
Yep.
He just showed us how to structure it because back then interest rates were still ridiculous. I mean, we're still coming out of the late 70s when interest rates were 18 to 21%, just insanity. So we did an assumption on the first mortgage. We refinanced the guy's second, and we gave him a third note for the remaining equity. Then we rented out the other two bedrooms to two other guys whose monthly rent pretty much covered our out of pocket costs, other than like maybe $50. Um, but now that house is worth 10 times that. And which is another lesson I'm going to share with everybody. I did have to sell a bunch of properties, years ago due to a divorce, and quite frankly, I wanted to get the heck out of Pittsburgh. I love people in Pittsburgh, but I'm a coast guy. I need water and sunshine. I can't deal with that gray, cloudy winter crap. But in any case, I never really regretted buying a property. I mean, there's some that gave me a lot of headaches, but in real estate, you always have options that you can take to turn it into a profitable venture and correct mistakes. What I'm getting at is I regret having sold every property I sold. If I'd have just come up with a different idea for the court system, I would have kept, you know, even 10% of the properties. Good Lord. It was a lot of properties. It was insanity. And it was in the middle of the recession too. So it was a bloodbath. But the reality is, um, real estate always goes up. The last recession, yeah, we saw some dips around the country. Absolutely.
Yep.
Phoenix,
Yep.
Southern California, Florida. But for the most part, like Worcester, Pittsburgh, I mean, it was like a mild bump. But over time, if you figure you're going to live through in a lifetime, probably somewhere between 5 and 10 recessions. Some are going to be minor. Overall, your value. I mean, just look at the values like the one I just told you about. 63,000. Can you imagine that? 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom ranch in a beach town. You know, I mean, I gobble these things up, guys, because your 630,000 today is going to be 6.3 million in probably 30 years. You know, and I'm not kidding around. I'm telling you, it's. Look at Canada. Look at Canada as a model. Look at Ontario specifically, around Toronto. I used to live up there. When I first moved to London, Ontario, you could get an average home, 4 bedroom, 2 bath for 250,000 bucks, just like you could do in the U.S. In a matter of a few short years, they were double that, and then they doubled again. And this was the 5 years I was there prior to the pandemic. It's just insanity. The way they do their banking system is smarter than us here in the States. But what it does is it creates this a huge inflationary factor. And I don't know how they do it up there. There's people that just literally will never be able to buy a home. And it's a shame. We do not want that in this country. Um, but back to the podcast here. You mentioned that you will go into Connecticut and Rhode Island
Yep.
and New Hampshire. I like Maine. One of my best friends lives in a little place called Old Orchard Beach,
Yep.
and we go
Beautiful.
surfing up there and embarrassing ourselves. But as far as like going to the adjacent states,
Yeah.
um, is there a state between Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire that's easier or better than the others? I mean, whether it's legally, financially.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, if you go just over the border into New Hampshire, a lot of times it's a little bit more affordable.
mhm,
You know, and some tax advantages going there. If you go a little bit further north, there's some incredible lakes up there. Um,
mhm,
I'd say out of the three, though, Connecticut's the one that we do the most in because a lot of people are looking in both of those states. Connecticut tends to have a little bit higher taxes, a little bit more land, and a little bit cheaper prices. And what we're finding also is there's some towns just over the border in Connecticut. Putnam, Connecticut's a good example. You can get a pretty good value on a property there. You can get stuff that cash flows a little bit better. Woonsocket, Rhode Island, same thing. So what we found is when people were just like, hey, I can't find these numbers aren't making sense to me. We started
mhm.
edging into some of these other places to do that. Um, but that's kind of, I'd say those are the advantages. A little bit cheaper, actually, all three states. Usually, when somebody is leaving our
Really?
state, it's to get something that's a little bit cheaper, or like Connecticut or New Hampshire, like a little bit more rural, maybe a little bit more land.
Yeah.
Is what we're
Yeah.
usually seeing.
Yeah. I've been to uh, all those, and one of my best friends, his son went to Johnson and Wales
Yep.
in Rhode Island. But what about? I think it's called Farmington. It's just a little bit south of the border in Connecticut. Um, there's Farmington, West Farmington. It's I forget the exact how far south it is. But and there's another one, by the way, Massachusetts. I think it was Leominster. Does that sound right? It's like west of.
Leominster, Fitchburg
Yeah.
area. That's a little north of Worcester.
Yeah.
That's also typically a little bit more affordable. So people are
Okay.
going. I mean, again, that's also been a very hot city. Springfield has too. All of those have been very hot over the last few years. But it is a little bit more affordable, a little bit better numbers because the rents are a little bit lower, but not drastically enough lower.
Okay.
But it used to be where you could just get stuff that cash flowed crazy, and we just
Yeah.
somebody wants the cash flow they might be getting in like Kansas City or something. I tell them to go to Kansas City because it's
Yeah.
you're not gonna get it here.
All right. Yeah. No, I agree. There's a lot of good growth places around the country now that, you know, not surprising, I would say, but um, unexpected, like Arkansas, Alabama. It's weird. Like Mississippi's not really experiencing the same growth, and it's right next to Alabama. Alabama's just going crazy. South Carolina could be that, but South Carolina has really high property taxes relative to North
Okay.
Carolina and Georgia. But there's so much land there, nobody's paying attention to it. Um, but let's do this. I know we're going to get over time here pretty quickly, but um, for anybody that wants to live and or invest in Massachusetts, it sounds like you're definitely the place to go. I mean, I very rarely find someone like you, Jim, that can cover a wide area like that, and you actually know your areas. I mean, and you're in one of the best ones actually, which is right outside of Worcester. So your website, email, phone number. What's the best way for people to reach out to you and just pick your brain and start to build that relationship?
Yeah, I'll give all of them. I mean, they're all pretty easy. So if you go to our website, jimblacksellshomes.com, very simple. And then you can email me at jim@jimblackgroup.com. And my cell phone is 774-280-0353.
Okay, 0 All right, so jimblacksellshomes.com,
Yep.
and then Jim at the Jim Black Group
Jim
for
at
email.
Jim at jimblackgroup.com.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so I'm going to repeat these for everybody. So everybody, if you're driving, don't write it down. You can get the show notes later, and you'll have it in there. But it's jimblacksellshomes.com, just like it sounds. Jim at jimblackgroup.com. Okay, for email and phone number. And this is nice for you guys to get this, so I would give Jim a big pat on the back for this one. 774-280-0353.
Mhm.
So look him up. I mean, the guy knows his stuff, and I'll give you a little secret here. I actually know a little bit about Jim because one of my good best friends used to work with Jim, and I know Jim's the real deal, guys. If you're looking for somebody to help you and support you in your real estate efforts, Mass, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire, um, do the right thing. Look them up. And by the way, Jim, I want to say thank you for everybody. I know we have listeners in close to 50 countries now, but mostly U.S. and followed by Canada. Um, but I want to thank the listeners, you guys listening, and also ask you to leave a review because your reviews make Jim's and my life easier. We don't actually make money doing this. It's just community service. We help each other. I get to promote Jim. I get good content for you, the listener. So your reviews actually are what makes all that happen. So if you can do that, we really appreciate it. And Jim, thanks again, man. God bless you. God bless everybody listening, you and your families. And we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.